Hi everybody, my name is Karen Fabian and I'm the founder of Bare Bones Yoga, and thanks for taking a moment to find me here on YouTube. So some of you may be new to my YouTube channel, although some of you may be returning viewers, and I know that because I get quite a few emails from teachers who say, thank you for your content on YouTube, I'm so glad I found you, it really resonates with me and I'm learning so much. So if that's you, thank you so much for continuing to show up. And if you're new to my YouTube channel, let me tell you a little bit about me and how I am here to help you. My passion is teaching you anatomy, and not just the mechanics of anatomy, really helping you translate that knowledge into the tactical skills like how to give cues with anatomy in mind, how to answer students' questions about the body with ease and with clarity and with confidence, and how to build sequences with anatomy in mind. And all of those things together is what I'm passionate about. And what I've found is that when teachers build those skills, their confidence soars. And I would say the number one thing that teachers tell me they want more of is confidence. And it may seem like this elusive thing, when in fact, you can directly tie it to a lack of knowledge around anatomy. When you don't understand what you're talking about, when you're teaching a movement-based practice, of course you're not going to feel confident. So let's get into today's video content and we can get into some of the details. So this video is going to cover a little bit of a piggyback on what I talk about in my most recent podcast episode. It's all about working with students who have injuries. Now, of course, you need to understand anatomy to be able to do that. So let me just give you some general concepts. So let's say you're working with someone one-on-one, or someone comes up to you after class and they say they have an injury in their shoulder or their wrist, and they're not sure how they can approach practice. Now, of course, in a group class, this is going to be harder, or online it's going to be harder because you're just going to be kind of presenting a general sequence. So let's hone in on the scenario where you're working with someone one-on-one. And this is really what I go into in massive detail in my podcast episode that just came out this week, by the way. So one approach you could consider is to completely avoid weight bearing on the arm. So you could do all of what we typically see in a standing sequence. You could take them through warriors 1 and 2. You could take them through a crescent lunge twisting series. You could definitely have them do all of the balances, right? None of that would require any weight bearing. You could then take them to their back, take them to their belly and then their back, and then do some restorative poses. So you could essentially create a 40 to 45 minute to even an hour sequence without ever having any weight bearing on the arms. Now let's take the converse. Let's say that someone came to you and they have an ankle injury. Well, this is something where you're going to want to get a sense of, is it that they are no weight bearing, maybe they're even wearing a boot for protection, or is it the kind of thing where it's a mild strain and they can put a little weight on it, it's just something that, you know, is tender to the, I want to say tender to the touch, but might not be able to take a lot of weight bearing. So in the former situation where they're completely non-weight bearing, you're going to want to do everything seated. So that would basically allow you to do any kind of seated posture. So this would be more in the restorative realm. But you could also do things like, you could do all sorts of core work, and then maybe to a certain extent you could do some posterior chain work, bridge type postures, without avoiding pushing off on that standing leg. The other thing you could do is poses on the belly, as well as working on the lateral aspect of the hip by doing some strengthening work, dynamic movement that brings into play hip abduction. Now, some of the general concepts I want you to keep in mind. Before you see anyone in a one-on-one session, if they have an injury, you're going to want to be sure that they're medically cleared by their doctor. The other thing you're going to want to know is if they are seeing anyone for physical therapy, because if they are, you're going to be able to get a sense of what kinds of things are they doing in physical therapy that you can mimic in yoga practice. One thing, for instance, that comes up is working posterior chain and strengthening it. So if you have people come into tabletop pose and then have them work a bit of a lengthening of one arm and the opposite leg, and then doing it on the converse side, this is a really good way to start to strengthen around the SI joint as well as lengthen the lats. Remember, your latissimus dorsi runs from your lower back up to your humerus, and it's responsible for a little bit of shoulder extension, but also this action of bringing the arms, this is shoulder extension, bringing the arms down like this, right? So moving the shoulder in this plane, the sagittal plane, backward is shoulder extension. And so when the lats are tight, people tend to have difficulty reaching their arms up straight. So you see this in your down dog, people might have some challenges there. You might see it in your warrior poses where their arms aren't straight. So working that bird dog type posture is a great way to lengthen the lats and also strengthen along the SI joint, the sacroiliac joint. When we get into that SI joint area, we're talking about, in part, where the latissimus dorsi originates. So that's that whole thoracolumbar area. And also some of the external rotators of the hip, like the piriformis and the obturator muscles. These are muscles that sit on the posterior hip and are primarily responsible for external rotation. So I'm going to end there. I actually filled this with a lot of anatomical terminology. And I want to just say, in general, if you're listening and you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, please don't worry. There is a way for you to build your understanding of anatomy, and then from that, learn these tactical tools. And that's by enrolling in my program, the Blueprint Learning Program. Now, it's not open right now for enrollment, but you can get on the wait list just by visiting my website and clicking on the link. I'm going to include it here, though, with this video, so it's really easy for you to get on the wait list. In this program, I not only teach you the anatomy, but then I help you translate it into those tactical skills that you want. How to cue with anatomy in mind, how to build sequences with anatomy in mind, and how to answer students' questions about the body and injury, and certainly all of this kind of thing we're talking about here, working with students one-on-one. So to get on that wait list, just click the link in this video. I'll contact you, I'll tell you a little bit more about it, and when enrollment opens next. The other thing I want you to do is grab this week's podcast episode, listen to it, and there's a couple things at the end that you'll hear that'll give you some free downloads that associate with that episode, so it'll really round out your learning. The my podcast is called Conversations for Yoga Teachers. You can find it right on iTunes. So thank you so much for watching. Please leave your questions. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next video. Namaste.